All right, we're getting ready to get going here with James Corbett. Y'all get ready, buckle in and such while we're getting everything ready. What? Yeah, in a minute when I'm ready. Yeah, I want to put some of the top stories up towards the top. We can yak about it.
Sure.
Okay. You at the top. Yeah, you really should. I don't know if you are already, but uh, Derek, we got your IPFS on its own server and it's rocking and rolling. It's fast
Okay.
and it's
Awesome.
working well. And we're testing on Freedom's Phoenix and Pirates on our different stuff, but you're kicking ass. So that thing
Good.
is you need to like put an IPFS. You're on
Yep.
on top of Stallion thing.
Okay. Well, we gotta figure out how to get other people on board here.
Oh, it's happening. It's all the scripting and coding in the back and doing big thing is stripping all the YouTubes because fortunately for you started undoing all that crap anyway. But a lot of the guys their backup channels is YouTube kind of crap. So what they've been doing is doing the scripting to pull those off and then reload them on the IPFS. So
Yeah.
it's just work. But they put forth the biggest effort. The priority was you. Is make sure your stuff
Yeah.
worked well because you're the
Yeah. Well, I
example.
want to get my audience mirroring it now.
Yeah, no, that's you go to. Go ahead and open this up on your computer. It's called Site Pins, CITEPINS.net. And then there's a couple hyperlinks you go to get to the
CITE?
no
SITE?
SITE
There we
SITE.
go. All right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
Sitepins.net, and then you
Yeah.
go into guides, and
Yeah.
then install IPFS, the top
Uh-huh.
one, and there's all the instructions.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, we're working on it, man. We're doing it, and we're
Yep.
using
Yep.
you
Yep.
as the example. What happened was a lot of common listeners, between us and every whatever. Anyway, a few days ago, Alex Jones had his attorney on, and they were talking about, oh my God, we got to make Facebook something, whatever, and YouTube and such, because they're really going after him. Well, if they're doing him, he's the canary in the coal mine. And I had Chris Duane on. I don't know if you know who he is. Silver Shield, a
Right. Yeah.
story never told thing.
Yep. 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 Yep.
He has been a regular for years. I mean, like God, 8-9 years we started having him on, and the way they're banning him is they put a warning. It's a warning. You're not allowed in warning, and you can't comment, and you can't embed. And then now
Uh-huh.
they're
Right.
also so they're also doing is where if you forward anything a link or you post it, then you're banned. For
Yeah.
even
Yep.
this
Yep.
is
Yep. Yep. Yep.
this
Yep.
is
Yep.
Orwellian shit,
Yeah.
man. I
Yeah.
mean, I knew it was going to get bad, but I didn't know it was going to get this bad this fast. They are so freaked out about
Whatever they can
2020.
do, they will.
Right?
So.
Can they? I mean, So here we go. All right, let's go ahead and get going here for People Freak. But yeah, hit your if you go into today's show, James Corbett, at the top of Freedom's Phoenix there, and then you'll scroll down in the first hour and you'll see it says James Corbett IPFS, IPFS videos, IPFS audio files. Just hit the IPFS main link right below, where it says Corbett Report, and you click on that, and it's been pretty fast. Now they changed
Yeah.
it.
Let me see.
One, yeah. Dang, it was faster before, but it's
Yeah, it's not what I would call fast.
let's see. Let's try the video, audio. Yeah, it was zooming earlier today. Maybe Derek's working on it.
Okay.
Donna, bring me my phone, please. And I keep telling him, I go, anytime I really want to show it, it doesn't work every other time. It's faster than hell.
Yeah, I'm getting an IPFS resolve context deadline exceeded error.
God dang, it's been kicking ass. Before we start the recording, let me call Derek.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that he's not doing something. So tell me about Vietnam.
I'll tell you on air.
All right. Hey, we're getting ready to go live with Corbett and talk about how great and wonderful and fast his IPFS thing, and now it's not loading. All right. All right. Which message you gonna signal or what? All right. Cool. Thanks. All right. He's checking it right now, and then he'll send me a message when he's whatever the hell he's doing.
All right.
All right. Here we go.
Okay.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Undefeated here on Declare Your Independence. I'm Ernest Hancock here in Phoenix, Arizona, from the BEA beautiful studios of Phoenix with an S, PhoenixPhoenix.com. We got James Corbett on. We've been missing him. There's no James Corbett videos to put up for a week or two because he's been on vacation in Vietnam. You know, that's one thing. You live in Japan, and where do you go on vacation? I don't know. You know, the mainland China, the continent of Asia, Malaysia, America? Maybe not. So this is, and we'll talk about exchange rates and so on and different cultures and everything, and then get caught up on the news and what's up and what's projects he's working on. We're going to see some more videos. Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good morning, Ernie. I'm doing just fine, although I am completely and utterly exhausted because we literally just got back yesterday, and you know, it's only a 2-hour time difference, so I can't claim jet lag, but I feel jet lagged.
Vacation from your vacation. Yeah, we're leaving. Donna and I, we got a destination wedding in Hawaii. You know, Mark Victor's getting married, and we're going. So we said, you know what? We're making a vacay out of it. So we'll be gone. I don't know, I think it's 8 days or something. I'm going to do less night. Well, we can do 5. I go, no, hell no. I am not first time finally going to Hawaii and making it less than a week. That just ain't happening. I need at least, you know, a day or two of this, meet the libertarians, know some people there, do whatever. And then all I want to meet with them for the first couple of days so they can tell me all the cool places to go. And then I'm going to be on a beach watching waves and sand lap over my toes. Maybe I can find me some ganja. I don't even know what the marijuana laws in Hawaii. I need to check. Not that I care, but I need to check. But, you know, what we'll do is let's hear about your vacation first. Tell me all about Vietnam, James.
All right. Well, can I preface everything that we say here by me saying I don't want to be one of those people who go on a 2-week vacation and then claim to be an authority on a country. So I'm not going to do that. I've read people who go on like the 2-week vacation to Japan and are talking about Japanese society and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I've lived here 15 years and I feel like I don't know Japan.
Right.
Anyway, but my impressions of Vietnam. I don't know what I was expecting exactly, but I think it was something like this. One of the first things that I noticed in Ho Chi Minh, where we flew into, was...
Now, wait a minute. Ho Chi Minh was Saigon? Is that what
That's right.
They changed?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I think everyone still basically calls it Saigon, but it's officially Ho Chi Minh City.
Ho Chi Minh City, got it.
One of the first things I noticed was rounding a busy corner with the million scooters going this way and that way all over the place, of course, as usual, as I think everyone knows about. But seeing the sign, the kind of commie propaganda sign, I don't even know what exactly it's saying because I don't read Vietnamese, but clearly communist propaganda of some sort with the commie star and the proud-looking whoever it was leader. And right behind that billboard that was sitting there on the side of the street was like I guess a Vietnamese knockoff equivalent of Starbucks, Highlands coffee. And it's, that's kind of what you expect at this point. The communist, whatever propaganda with the capitalist alongside, because that's the engine that's driving the economy.
Well, I got the impression that Vietnam is now more commercialized, a vacation spot of come to our beach. And are they openly communist? Are they more Chinese? Or are they, China? Or are they America? Or what's, how's their socioeconomic system?
There were points, there were times when I could have just forgotten that it was kind of a communist country, I guess. But then there are points that are definitely reminders. One of the interesting things that happened while I was there, so I was visiting Brock, who is my video editor, my friend, who is Australian, but he's been living in Vietnam for the last year. And so I was visiting him, and one day he says, "Hey, look at this," and he puts on the Fox Sports channel, and it's just like a color bar thing, the error thing. I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" He's like, some general, I guess in the Vietnamese army or whatever, died, so they're blacking out all the like foreign channels. Like all the Vietnamese channels are fine, but all the foreign channels were just the color bar because they don't. I don't even know. I can't even really wrap my head around.
If you're going to be watching TV, you're going to be watching what they want you to watch.
I guess so, basically, something like that. Anyway, so there's like little reminders of that. But as Brock said, and I think this is probably what I'll be writing about in the Forecaster this weekend, he said something that resonated with me. Yeah, there's all the laws and rules and regulations, and you got to do things this way and that way. But in reality, they generally let you do what you're going to do unless you're causing a problem, kind of thing,
or challenging the state.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And if you're wanted by the state, they'll crack down. I think that's actually an important point, just generally, not just Vietnam, but everywhere. Of course, Patriot Act and whatever, we could talk about the U.S., we could talk about Japan, we could talk about any country with all the laws and rules and regulations, but they're always selectively enforced. They're always there as kind of, this is the structure, this is the cage, and whenever we want to, we could shut the bars on that cage and lock you in there.
Yeah,
but we'll leave the door open. You can walk in and walk out and feel like you're free. And here's the cracks in the system, and everyone knows about them, and everyone knows, yeah, you're supposed to do this, but you actually do that. That happens all the time. But there's always like the reality of they can always come and when they want to, they can crack down on you. And
well, what about the surveillance? Do they have the cameras and so on like they do?
Certainly didn't notice it. I wouldn't say Vietnam is exactly third world country, but it's definitely run down. It's definitely not like Japan or a modern kind of Western economy kind of thing. It's definitely grittier, and it's not like China, surveillance state, cameras on every corner kind of thing.
Well, Japan is, and like Singapore, Japan, they really pride themselves on it being really clean, and you got, every bathroom's got to be signed by the attendant, whatever. Vietnam, any comparison to that, or they don't care?
Yeah, definitely not clean. It's not the word I would use to describe it. I mean, I don't know. It's not horrible and dilapidated, but it's definitely, run down compared to Japan. And my wife, she had a harder time dealing with that, I think, being Japanese. So the first thing she says when she gets into Brock's apartment is start sweeping the floor and everything. Because, this is just too, it's not Japanese enough.
Well, how old are your children?
My boy just turned 6. My girl just turned 3.
And you took them with you?
Yep.
And
Yes,
so she's all freaking about hygiene for them, and oh my God, don't lick the floor.
I think that's clearly part of it.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it's traveling with little children is a lot of work at the best of times.
Yeah, no,
traveling,
I know.
And then traveling in Vietnam, especially because if I was just there by myself or just me and my wife, we could just rent scooters and just get around like the locals do. But obviously can't do that with little kids, so we were taking.
Yeah, you can. I see him with 6-7 people on those scooters.
That's true, actually. Yeah, Brock made a point of that. Like, he's seen some crazy stuff on the back of these little scooters. They'll just put anything on them.
Yeah, no, they got goats and crates and the chickens and half the family and the mother-in-law facing on the handlebars. And I mean, seriously.
I wasn't quite ready for that, though.
No. Vietnam, is it a player at all on the world stage? Are they manufacturing anything? Or I got the impression that they were starting to become an up and comer and so on. That's not really true.
Yeah, I think they're gearing towards that, and I can't remember. Brock was telling me about some kind of deal that China had just signed with Vietnam to manufacture something in Vietnam. Like they were going to start. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I think they're trying to gear towards becoming a sort of bigger player, but they're definitely not there yet. But it might be, investment opportunity, folks. I don't know. Talk to your international.
Hey man, when there's blood in the streets, man, we got to be buying us some land in Venezuela. Have you been paying any attention to any of the news while you were gone, or do you care?
That was one of the great things about this vacation for me, is that I really did detach. I kind of looked at the headlines once a day or two. But only at the headlines. And I checked my email, I think 3 times on the entire 2-week vacation, which is amazing because I have to check my email. People are signing up to become subscribers to my website. It's not an automatic process. I have to manually do it. So I should be doing that every day, but I wasn't checking emails. I was hardly looking at headlines. So let me also preface whatever we talk about today by saying, I don't know what's going on in the news.
You do. It's all the same.
Yeah.
You come.
Well, I heard about the Venezuela coup attempt that obviously failed. So, but I didn't hear the details of that.
Did it really? I mean, hell, I don't know. I don't pay that much attention. It's if Trump does this, there's some military intervention. We go in to Venezuela and do anything. I am calling BS on the whole already. The day after he was inaugurated, they were raining down missiles on, what was it, Yemen? And we're done. Next. I don't care. Yeah. But yeah, I'm all about 3 weeks.
Bolton's talking about Iran again, and they just sent an aircraft carrier group into.
Yeah. That was another thing. China just finished their 3rd aircraft carrier. I don't know why. I mean, hypersonic missiles take out those. I don't know what the heck that's about. But it's about projecting power. It's like
exactly.
It's like
for the last half century, aircraft carriers have meant that you are a major player on the world stage. So I think it's a prestige thing at this point. But you're right. I think the modern technology might have superseded that in the way that, hey, look back to World War I. The Germans with these upstart submarines, they're not going to take out these giant destroyers that we've been building. The whole point of the whole military buildup of the first part of the 20th century was the naval buildup and, Germany versus Britain and all this. And it was completely and utterly made useless because of the submarines that were taking out all these big vessels.
Well, it's kind of the, God, who was it? Was it Teddy Roosevelt? Yeah, walk softly, carry a big ship. Stick, whatever, same thing.
Yeah.
So, it's and had the Great White Navy that went around Latin America. They painted all the ships white and says hello. Well, is that what China's doing on this, One Belt Road Silk rebuild, whatever the heck? We need some aircraft carriers going around and explain it to you. And it's just one more level of, I don't know, brinkmanship of we got one too. This is not going to go well.
How did the Chinese leapfrog into this, 21st century military technology so quickly?
Somebody had plans and they knew where they were.
Exactly. Well, I just wrote about this. That was my last forecaster editorial.
Or Clinton gave it to him.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember what I called that editorial, but it was about the all these newfound military gadgets that China's coming up with all look suspiciously exactly like American equivalents, from American defense contractors. China's suspiciously American arsenal, a closer look, so people can check that out in my newsletter archive. You go across the board: laser weapon systems, stealth fighter jets, drones. Even copies of American standard issue rifles and things are literally part for part.
It makes you wonder if it's kind of there's a deal going on. It sure as hell was with the Clinton administration. But
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. We don't have to wonder. Not only during the Clinton administration, as people might know about, some missile technology was given to the Chinese by the Clinton, under Clinton's nose anyway.
Well, it's like we got to have a big superpower to be against, or you don't need to be a superpower if you don't have other superpowers. And you got to have three. It was always Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. And then when it wasn't Iran, Iraq, North Korea, then it's Libya, Iran, North Korea. And then what happens when they get rid of North Korea? It's always in threes. They got to have. Now we got Venezuela, Iran. You always got to have Iran. And tell me about what you think's going on with this Iran thing.
I don't know. I don't know what the details are. I'm not sure why suddenly Iran has become the focus again, other than I know Israel and Gaza are, the Palestinians are going at it again. Those Palestinians.
Well, you know when that happened? Two things happened. One, Trump recognizes the annexation of the Golan Heights Genie Energy. I saw that one coming. And then immediately after that, Bibi gets elected again, and we start going after God. Well, then they have hundreds of rockets from Hamas came and they're bombing us. I'm going.
And Bibi specifically thanked Trump, didn't he? And they're going to call some settlement, name some settlement after Trump or something.
Oh yeah. They're going to build a city in the Golan Heights and name it after Trump. Oh, we're permanent now.
And Dr. Frank is excited about this?
It makes for good conversation. When we get back, that's one of the things. He'll be on for an hour tomorrow, but we got to do the long marathon again. So we're going to have, him, Frank Tambury, Dr. Frank Tambury come on. He's all about Trump Report. And then Tim Pachote, the Liberty Advisor. Tarzan Keith will be in, and my friend Bob Anderson, and we're just going to do a round table and get some, and just beat up on Frank. All right, hold your own, man. Let's do it. But then the Mueller report came out, and then Trump is trying to make sure Democrats want the whole thing out. They didn't want it out. They did want the whole thing out. Now he doesn't want it all out. His taxes from back when, came in. See, he lost over these years, millions or billions of dollars or whatever. And of course he did. I want to pay taxes. I mean, I ouch quit it, and I'm embarrassed I even know that much.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm in the same boat. Exactly. Yeah, unimportant. So getting back to the important stuff. Yeah, China. And I think you're right about building up the enemy. Again, I specifically cited that in my article on it, talking about Sutton, Anthony Sutton. And his work, essentially, I mean, his work on technology transfers to the Soviet Union was the work that he was doing when he was at the Hoover Institute. Respected Stanford professor.
Here's your article. Right there.
There it is.
China's American arsenal. Yeah, we had that out. Well, Anthony Sutton is the one that co-wrote with Patrick Wood, Trilaterals over Washington. And Patrick Wood and I we did a joint presentation at the Breakfast Club here in Arizona this last Saturday on this smart city technology thing that's coming here. Yeah. And all I focused on was the funding mechanism that they're doing, the financing of it. And it is 103 pages of this is how we go make tax slaves. And I was like, wow, here in Arizona. I'm like, all right, you guys want to play? Let's rock. So Sutton, was this in the 70s he was doing this or later?
That's right, yeah. So I think it was late 60s, early 70s, he was publishing, he did a 3-volume study on technology transfer to the Soviet Union. And that was, once the third volume was published, it even got cited by Brzezinski himself as, this is good scholarship. He uncovered a lot of stuff. But once that they published the third volume, which was, I think it was titled National Suicide or something. And he was exposing all this, stuff that was going on, and literally giving Soviets technology that was then used for example, in the Korean War against Americans being killed by machinery that was created by American specs through American affiliated, the Ford plant at Gorski and stuff. It was crazy, right? And incredible that no one else was writing about this. Once he published that third volume, he got kicked out and basically ignored by academia for the rest of his life. But then he started writing, Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, all this stuff. But in that, I mean, again, I cite that in the article where he says the 130,000-man North Korean army, which crossed the South Korean border in June 1950, was trained, supported, and equipped by the Soviet Union. This army included a brigade of Soviet T-34 medium tanks with U.S. Christie suspensions. The artillery tractors that pulled the guns were direct metric copies of Caterpillar tractors. The trucks were either from the Henry Ford Gorky plant or the ZIL plant. The North Korean Air Force had 180 Yak planes built in plants with U.S. Lend-Lease equipment. These Yaks were later replaced by MiG-15s, powered by Russian copies of Rolls-Royce jet engines sold to the Soviet Union in 1947. It goes on and on. And all of these, every single one of these sounds like a kind of just a minor detail, but you put it all together. No, they literally created the Soviet Red Army, essentially. And they supplied it, and that's exactly what's happening with China right now. They are creating.
Okay, to what end? It's just to have a viable enemy, or why? Some generals make money.
Himself,
what?
Sutton himself answered that question by saying that the ultimate goal was to create a merger of the West and the East in the old Cold War. It was going to be the kind of capitalist but socialist. It's the monopoly capitalist system. That was what they wanted to bring in. And the best way to do that was to build up the Soviet Union and to have this conflict with the West that would ultimately merge the two systems.
The alliance.
That was the way he was taking it. Now, it didn't play out in terms of like a conflict, a military battle, obviously, between the West and East. But essentially, I mean, that is essentially what has happened. The consolidation of the economy. No one can deny that the economy is more consolidated than ever. The fewer corporations than ever control larger sections of the economy, and it's only increasing, that centralization of control. It is exactly what Rockefeller was talking about 100 years ago. Competition is a sin. If you're competing against us,
one thing that brings to mind that came out is just as while you were gone, Australia announced that they're implementing the Chinese surveillance system, and thank you for the equipment, and we'll buy some. And, so here it comes. And then we had an article today on Freedom's Phoenix. It was, what was it? New Zealand and Australia has fallen to, the globalist border of blah, blah, blah. So, you get the headlines, you go through the summary. I kind of see the stories. I go, that'd be interesting. We put them up and so on. But, it's like a playbook they keep repeating over. And like you're talking about, this has been going on forever. At what point do people start to see it? It's from James Corbett videos that get banned.
Yeah. And I think the important point, because for the average person, the average Joe out there, like you or me, we don't have control over the system, and we're not going to stop them from creating these military gadgets or whatever. But at the very, very least, at least in the past, they have depended on the public to go along with and get caught up in war fever when it comes. So when the time comes, and when we flip the switch, and when we tell you to hate the Germans, or when we tell you to hate the Russians, you'll be primed to do it. Now, when we tell you to hate the Chinese, you're going to be ready to go and fight and die in some glorious battle for king and country, which of course is really just about, consolidating a system that's manufactured and rigged against you from the get-go. So in the past, it has been important to sort of do what you can to at least going to be as important. That's the real point. Once we get to that point where human input is not important in waging war, then I'm not even sure. I mean, hey, then
I know exactly where it goes. It's a freaking episode of the old Star Trek.
What is our power in a system where they don't need us? In a sense,
tax slave.
We're getting closer to the point where that ultimate ideal of, hey, maybe just a few elite ruling over a million or so chattel slave at the bottom would be enough to sustain the system for the elite at the top. And once that we reach that point, they flip the switch, and whatever they've been putting in, whatever the vaccines or the GMO foods or whatever it is, they just add that other thing to the geoengineering, and suddenly, people are mass dying or whatever it is. Again, that's kind of that's where we're heading. And,
what I was looking for is there's an episode of the old Star Trek where they had a planet very technologically advanced, and there was no war as you would traditionally see it. No buildings got destroyed.
A simulated war.
Yeah, it was a simulated war, and the people, we took 1 million people hit here. Everybody go into your disintegrator. It's your turn. And I'm like,
yeah, you gotta die.
What? So, of course, what did Kirk do? He goes, yep, blew up the computers. He goes, now you're going to have a real war. Nasty, nasty war. You want to have that? Or you can go for peace. And that's kind of where we're going now. They want to have these simulated robots versus robots wars, and maybe some guys on Navy ships die and some satellites get shot down. But, it's kind of a war, negotiated war, and we're going to spend a bunch of money on some drones getting ready for the war of the war. And then people die, things happen. Now, Iraq, a lot of people, Vietnam, Iraq, a lot of people died. Certainly their people died. We had a lot of injuries and so on, but it just wasn't bloody enough. It wasn't bad enough. You get tired of it, it goes away. Afghanistan's still kind of going on. I'm not for war, but I'm not for just this cold, drag it out, forever and always draining of enormous years of life of everybody, resources, time. Yeah. Is money. I mean, if they're taking all your money and you got this big debt and your lifestyle goes to crap and your kids die from starvation and not having enough nutrition or medicine or whatever the hell, I mean, that's just as bad. And that's where we're going. The debt is just getting so stupid, and they want to get even more and spill it on military and give the military X amount plus double X because we love you. I love Mary. Wonderful people. Great humanitarians. You think?
Yeah. So here's the real question. As I say, this whole scheme, this whole game has been played using the public basically against itself. You stir people up and you stir up hatred and animosity so that they'll sign up to go fight in some war, or so that they'll fit themselves in as a cog into your economic machine that's rigged from the top down. But as I say, I mean, as we approach the singularity in some form or other, and human elements become less and less important, what's in it for the controllers of the system to even bother with the human element? I mean, why do they need us at all at that point? And then what's the answer to that other than mass extermination?
If they don't need, you got a robot doing that, we don't need you anymore. We had the one story on the front page is Navy's new drone boat features machine gun and Hellfire missiles. I mean, here we go. Yep. So, So in the East, where you're at, is Japan worried about this China thing and the South China Sea, and they're going to, get armed up? Are they trying to get some war fever going on or what?
Yes, on and off. I mean, not explicitly. They don't come out and talk war, but, the feeling's in the air, and clearly Japan has been, I don't know if I'd say remilitarizing, because they already do have a military. They just don't call it one. But getting the public ready for the idea that Japan will be more of a military power in the future, which of course is...
Well, what do they call their forces?
Self-defense force. It's a self-defense force because, as you know, constitutionally, Japan is not allowed an actual army. So they call it a self-defense force. It is actually, I think, the 5th or 6th largest army in the world, but they're not allowed to call it an army.
Well, aren't they testing fighter jets now? U.S. F-35s or some crap like that?
Yeah. Japan has all sorts of fighter jets and everything. But the catch is that they're not allowed to deploy them in an offensive capacity, blah, blah, blah. So now, as you may have heard, the Abe administration has been trying to change the interpretation of the Constitution to allow for collective self-defense. Now it's not just if Japan is under threat, but if one of Japan's partners is under threat, they can send forces to help, kind of thing. Side. So they're starting to test that sort of stuff out. And I think the underlying point of all of this, of course, is it's China. We got to do something about China. And so a lot of the public, or more of the public, is coming on board with the idea, well, maybe we do need something. It'll be interesting to see if the new emperor...
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. This new emperor thing, you kind of missed that, or you got a big dose of it anyway. Give the people an update on that, what happened with the new emperor.
So, as people may or may not have heard, the old emperor is 85, I think, and he just retired. We'll say he
Yeah, how
stepped
often
down.
does
He
that
abdicated.
happen?
Well, that's interesting because it is the first abdication of the chrysanthemum throne or whatever they call it. It's actually the oldest hereditary monarchy in the world at this point. Um, but it's the first abdication in 200 years. So they didn't even know how to do this. They had to create special laws in order for this to take place and everything. Anyway, so he abdicated on April 30th, and on May 1st, the new emperor was sworn in, or whatever they call it, coronated.
Yeah.
And I luckily I missed all of the nonsense surrounding that because it is nonsense. But the one question I have about this is why really? Is it really just because he's getting old and tired and doesn't feel like he can do it anymore? Or is there something more to it? Because really, I mean, the emperor can do whatever he wants. If he doesn't want to go to some meet and greet tea party or whatever, he doesn't have to do it. So why did he really step down? And one potential, although I don't know, but one potential is that the former emperor has been, at least on the surface, has been very much a proponent of Japan as a peaceful country. He was obviously brought to power, or he took the throne after the death of his father, Haruhito, who of course was the emperor of the old imperial Japanese Navy Army and all of that associated with war. So the last emperor was trying to associate himself with peace. We are a peaceful nation. Does this change mean perhaps?
Yeah, so we're going to go to the Fourth Reich or something of Japan kind of thing?
It's potentially possible. I don't know much about the new guy, other than he was educated at, I think, Oxford. I think that's where he met his wife. So, I mean, of course, they all swim in the same puddles.
Well, one thing I did notice is any pictures, I mean, you can't help but see something. And the only thing that I noticed is in a lot of the pictures, and it's one thing that if you, even though a little bit, you read Shogun or something, about Japan, is they put a lot of emphasis on humbleness, on not being flashy. The tea ceremony is in, clay cup, or it's not like this fine china tea crap. There's beauty in imperfection and so on in some things. I mean, of course, they're perfect and a lot of other things. But when he did his coronation, his robe was a very dirt brown, plain kind of thing. I mean, they play colors down a lot in some of their things. Is that part of their culture?
I certainly, I didn't see any of those pictures, so I don't know specifically about that, but I'm trying to think of any time I've seen the emperor. He's always just in a suit or whatever. It's not flowing robes and crowns and that kind of scepters, and it's not really associated with that. So I think there is probably something to that it's just not part of the iconography of the Japanese royalty.
Well, I'm wondering how that plays out to other parts of life. There just seems, that it's a different culture that they have to change. That they're change. This is the robe I was talking about. You're probably not seeing it, but it's just a plain brown. Just kind of not real flashy, not a lot of jewelry or any, embroidery or anything. I mean, it's nice, but it just seems more Japanese from what because I'm older. I've been around a while. I remember as a kid, anything you got, that Japanese crap pressed out of a beer can. For about 5 or 6 years, and then all of a sudden it kept getting better and better, and it's best, and we got our butts whipped. Yeah. So Japan, their economy, it used to be that the United States got a lot of their debt covered by and buying treasury bills and so on from West Germany and Japan. Is that so anymore? Is Japan a going concern, or are they in debt like everybody else?
Oh, they're the highest debt to GDP ratio of any Western modern developed nation. So clearly, I mean, it's a debt country at this point. And just before I went on vacation, I was reading about the I think we've reached, I got to look it up again. I think we've reached the point where the Bank of Japan is the top shareholder of Japanese stocks generally. Oh, as early as 2020, Nikkei calculations show the Bank of Japan will overtake the state-run pension fund as the top shareholder in Tokyo-listed companies. And the numbers are staggering. They're buying 28 trillion yen, which is $250 billion in exchange-traded funds. They're holding that as of the end of March, which is 4.7% of the total market capitalization of the first section of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. The BOJ is just literally just buying stocks. That is how the Japanese economy is functioning at this point.
You know, that's
And
what
it's
they called the zombie banks, and the zombie economy has been going on for decades. You know, we're not even have to wait for a black swan. It's going to be kind of an off-white swan, and it's going to devastate everything.
There's a name for that. I think gray rhino.
Oh, really?
Someone wrote a book about it. It's just like the thing that everyone sees and everyone knows about, but we ignore. You know.
You know, what are you doing to protect you and your family? I mean, you don't got to get all detailed, but I mean, are you, you got farmland of a relative of your wife of something, we're going to be okay over here? You know, if the next nuclear plant goes or something? I mean, what?
No. I have a little bit of precious metals, but not much. And I have crypto, but I certainly don't have stocks. I'm not, holding my breath for some Japanese pension to be there when I retire in 50 years or whatever.
Are you paying into some Japanese thing? Are you on their system?
Yeah, you have to. You have to pay into the state social pension, security, whatever, and medical and all of that.
Yeah, U.S. government's telling me I have to do a lot of stuff too.
The difference is if I don't do it, I'll get kicked out of the country.
Oh, okay, yeah, you got that going, and you want to stay there. You're going to retire and die there. Is that Japan's it?
I certainly don't have any plan to leave at this point. No.
You like it? I mean,
family, and this is where my family's roots are. So.
Yeah. You know, it's
actually that was another one of those things that really hit home when I was in Vietnam. Like, oh yeah, I'm thinking after a couple of weeks you just want to go home, but for me, after a couple of weeks, I just wanted to go to Japan. I mean, Japan really is my home at this point.
Well, this is interesting. You look at Japan and its proximity, and even though it's far away, it's really kind of westernized or U.S. and you know where the McDonald's is. But this Taiwan thing and China is kind of heating up a little bit. Is Japan expected to be the United States aircraft carrier for the Far East or what?
Japan has, for the past half century, been basically an American proxy in the Asia Pacific, and has been clearly, I think, has been Japan, Washington, Tokyo, Washington has been a core nexus in the Asia Pacific, and that was how the U.S. was proxy projecting power into Asia Pacific. But as Japan declines, or if not declines, at least is not growing like China is growing, their importance in the region is dwindling. Which is why I think it was a year and a half ago, back when Tillerson was at state, that the U.S. officially renamed the Asia-Pacific region the Indo-Pacific region, because they're trying to sidle up to India, I think, as the bulwark against China, because India is the rising potential power in the region that they could use as a proxy. So I think Japan is kind of less important now. And I was actually just reflecting on this just before we started talking. Japan, I think in the minds of a lot of Americans and other people, still probably is associated with high tech and that kind of stuff. But realistically, what was the last big innovation that really came to Japan? You had the Walkman in the 80s or something like that. Sony, used to be an innovator, but Sony didn't come up with the smartphone. I mean, they're not innovating anything.
Yeah, that's one thing about Japan was kind of like China, where it just took a lot of Western tech and did whatever with it. Maybe it wasn't as, clandestine, but it's the age of people now that are middle age or so on, they were guaranteed a job. It was like you're always going to be working for Toyota, and you always have a job, and we just need you to be a worker on the assembly line. We got a bunch of assembly lines. Well, now they went heavily robotic. You have an aging population. You have way under the replacement birth rate. You have young people that, I don't know, virgins at 30 or something. They got to ship in, gigolos from America to tell them how to ask for a date or something. Is any of that true?
A lot of it is true. And it is creating some very interesting situations. One of which is that they're starting to allow in more foreign workers for low wage, blue collar kind of work, including, basic retail work or helping out at
heavily from Malaysia or the Philippines or China. Where are they coming from?
Yeah, basically, yeah, everywhere else in Asia is where a lot of this is coming from. So, and that's a big cultural shift here because, of course, Japan has been quite an isolated nation for much of its history and has usually kept foreigners out to the most effectively. So that's going to be a big change, but it has to come. As I wrote a couple of months ago in the Forecaster, I was writing about some of the cafes that I go to here when I'm, writing a newsletter late at night. I go out to the cafe, just have a coffee while I'm writing, and they're open till midnight, basically, most of them. But suddenly I was finding, this one suddenly is closing at 11 now. And this one over here is closing at 10 now. What's going on? And, this convenience store, all convenience stores are always 24 hours, but now they're starting to talk about actually going from 7 to 11, 7-Eleven, and things like that. It's like, what's going on? It's because they literally can't find enough young workers to take these jobs. It's not a question of not having enough business. It's that they literally can't find enough workers to actually work.
Well, here in America, the senior citizens are, filling in a lot of these spots. And I'm wondering...
Yeah. And you get that here, too. Like, I go to the convenience store sometimes, and it's some, 70-year-old man who's serving me. I feel like...
So the senior citizens' average age, is a lot older. I mean, they're... Yeah, that's one thing. It was robotics is a big deal in Japan, just so they have somebody to take care of their grandparents.
Yep. Yep.
Is that
exactly? And that's the way it's being. A lot of this is being rolled out to the public here. It's like, this will be taking care of people in the old folks' home, kind of thing.
Well,
look, Softbait, the cute pepper robot. We can put him in your home.
Yay! Like iRobot. We have determined it's better for you to stay inside, or I kill you. The young people about this delayed marriage thing. And their girlfriend is some anime character or something, and that's another thing. Japan, there's a heavy influence. I wouldn't even say that. It's like there's a lot of pornography, or you may have sex toys and vending machines on the subway platform. But I mean, it's weird the way I saw a documentary on sex in Japan. And it was just weird. And it came from the last couple of decades or few decades or whenever of you marrying women in the workforce and manufacturing and old traditional. And it just didn't mesh and something went awry. Can you put your finger on it? What happened?
Well, again, I've only been here 15 years, so I can't speak to broad cultural changes over centuries. But I think like with any society that's really repressed and kind of on the outside very buttoned down, obviously on the inside there's going to be some crazy stuff going on. So I think that's reflected sexually. That's also reflected in a number of different ways. You would expect, one of the things I never even bothered to wrap my head around here was just TV programming. I don't know, I guess I just never thought about it, but back in Canada, you got your sitcoms and your dramas and your news programs and whatever, but here it's just all variety show kind of things, and it's all just mindless, utterly mindless, juvenile, stupid
game show kind of stuff, obstacle course with pies in your face kind of crap.
Well, that would actually be kind of interesting, but that's really not the kind of a standard fare here. It's just literally people sitting around talking about stupid and inane nonsense. And I think there was a point at which I would have been surprised that the Japanese public had such juvenile, puerile humor kind of sensibilities, but it kind of makes sense. Again, people are very straight-laced and buttoned down in public, so they go home and unwind with stupid slapstick.
Well, is there any, high drama of, current events of somebody's, you got like super duper YouTuber that's not just gaming or something, that's doing politics or opinion?
There is, but I don't keep up with that. I'm A, not young, and B, not fluent in Japanese, and C, don't care about pop culture, so I don't keep up with it. But there definitely is stuff. And that's the thing. I think there is a big generational gap here. Because I think a lot of our conceptions and preconceptions about Japan are based on kind of the traditional model. And as you were talking about the cradle to grave, one you work for one corporation your whole life and you get taken care of kind of mentality, which just doesn't, I think, apply to the younger generation here. And a lot of the kind of cultural mores and rules of old don't apply. I mean, holding hands or kissing or any kind of public affection with your partner in olden days, no one would do that. But younger kids do that. Younger people are eating McDonald's and whatever and growing to 6'3", and by the time they're 16, kind of thing. I mean, it's completely different than perceptions, but there's a big generational element.
One other thing, you're in Asia. There, you have like Cambodia and Laos, so on, but Vietnam and China, of course, and the Koreas and Japan and Taiwan and not the Philippines so much, but each one of these cultures were heavily controlled by the state. And each one has its own jacked up crap that's going on. Like China, the one child thing, to the point that they're shipping in women because everybody wanted to have a son. So they ship in women for them, and it's just the percentages are jacked up. The economy is affected. You have, so I'm just wondering. I mean, it's just all this proves, freedom's the answer. What's the question, kind of thing. And I'm wondering, do they see or they comment on this amongst themselves in the news programs? Is it culture? Are they aware of the problem where it went off? They should fix it. Is it discussed?
Certainly not like in the American context. There's nothing. I mean, there isn't a lot like Freedom's Phoenix in Japan or in Asia. It wouldn't look or sound like that. I have actually met some people who are connected to that kind of stuff here, and there's even like someone who was translating Mises into Japanese and stuff. So there's some elements of that, but it's very, very fringe. I mean, not mainstream.
That was one thing that we have a lot of success with the Project Arizona and Language of Liberty and what was going on in Europe, and they expanded it to Africa. And then they have, like Mexico City, and one of the girls here, she's probably her and the Venezuela kid, young man Jorge from Venezuela. He's, university top end guy, and I'm not going back, man. They'd throw my ass in jail. And the girl from Nepal, Kamala, she was photographed at a shooting range with an AK-47. Boom, 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 boom. Well, the government said take that down, and she goes, no, bite me, and they go, 2 years. You come back, warrant for you, go in jail 2 years. So she's like decided she's going to stay, she's going to fight it, whatever. And the reason is because she did she was really popular and had a lot of social media followers in Nepal, of all places.
Right.
And the reason was because she did a documentary that became this big feminist thing on the caste system. And this old woman was a senator that she was sold to cover a gambling debt by her dad or something. And, so it was a big feminist thing. So when she comes to America, they're all following her, and her picture with a AK-47, man, little girl with a AK, she's only she's probably not even 5 feet. She's really short, and probably the gun is as tall as she is. But for her holding that, it just had not only empowerment of a citizen, but of a woman that did this, and they're just like, hell no, they don't want to go down that road. Is there any of that there?
Well, this reminds me of a kind of epiphany that I almost kind of had when I was there in Vietnam. I was thinking about this because it seems like again, these are half-formed thoughts, so bear with me, but there's kind of two forms of collectivism. There's collectivism that's a collective that is made up of individuals who are valued as individuals, but they are put into the collective. And then there are collectives that it's about the collective, the system, and you are just a cog in that system. And I'm not sure exactly how this works, but it's because I was sitting there in Vietnam looking at, I mean, it's reflected in everything, but perhaps even just in the traffic, the crazy tangle of,
is it a lot
there
traffic?
Are lines on the road, but they don't mean anything. You just go and you kind of, and people walk out and people honking everywhere. It's obviously exact polar opposite to Japan, where everything's orderly and everything. And there seems to be something in that in Vietnam, you are aware it's just a big collective and you're just a cog in it. So you just slot yourself in wherever you can. And, who cares how that affects other people, because you just got to get into that system. Whereas the other system is you are an individual and you are worthy as a person in your own right. So you have to find and coordinate your way into that collective. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure exactly what this means, but there's different mentalities and different ways of seeing things.
Yeah, a Canadian that covers a lot of U.S. politics, that lives in Japan and visits Vietnam, I mean, you either got to get a lot of variety and diversity in your thought, or you just head explodes? I mean, I'm just wondering, you learning anything about the human condition of this? There's some common factors.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like everyone else, I think I'm just observing the world and the parts of it that I'm in and trying to make sense of it. But yeah, whatever. Anywhere people say this, wherever you go, people are people, and I think that's true. But
this
people
is
are
one
people
thing
within given contexts, and they interact and react differently to those contexts.
Okay, this is one thing. It's like you go to the Eskimo village or an Arabic camp or something like that, and if you don't take their horse or sleep with their wife, they have to kill you or something. And some other places are totally different. You didn't even look at, oh my God, you saw my wife without her veil on, or something. I mean, it's always, and I always thought, I'm going, how could you travel the world and not get killed? I mean, how do you become I used to call it a cosmopolitan man, and then, people start freaking out. Cosmopolitan has a bad connotation or whatever. A man of the world that's a peaceful person that goes around the world, and you're not a threat to anybody, and you're not a tourist that gets killed by, on the road. And I'm wondering, what behavior would that be? What is considered inoffensive to everybody? I don't know. What would you think?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that exists because, as you say, I mean, there are just so many different things. I want to say that most people are not violent and hateful people most of the time. And if you are a person who genuinely means well and is not trying to upset things and not trying to cause offense, you can probably get away with a lot of things in a lot of places. It's about an attitude more so than it's about what you're doing. And think of it from your own context. When some foreign person is visiting the States, I mean, you take that into account, and you might not.
Somebody comes to
I'm going to
mind.
kill you because you stepped onto my property.
Right. Somebody comes to mind. Whenever you're going around the world, we're doing anything, anywhere of anything. It's Joby Weeks gets away with the weirdest crap because he's smiling all the time. I'm just
it's
having a
hard
good
to
time.
dislike Joby.
No
matter who you are and where.
I'm like, wow, I can't believe he gets away with a lot of that. Sometimes he probably doesn't. I hear stories. But, yeah, I guess it's more of, like you say, an attitude, a jovial, a happy. They either think you're okay or you're crazy or not ready to kill you just yet, Yeah. So you're not looking like you're ready to slit their throat. The what's the next stories before you go? What's some of the next stories that you're motivated to work on?
I am probably going to be doing a top 10 conspiracy theories that turned out to be true video, because that's always a good one for getting people interested in these topics. I also made another list. You remember the Proper Not list, and I've been on some other lists of.
You made a list. Okay, good.
Something called the Pointer Institute.
Do we care about their list?
Came up with some list called, and they came out with this article called Unnews. I guess they're trying to rebrand fake news because fake news didn't work out so well for them. But now these unnews sites, and they made this big list of sites that are naughty sites. So they're biased, and of course, a lot of them are right-leaning websites. Make it that way you will. But anyway, Corbett Report was on that list, and as a result, I think that might have been related to that recent Facebook banning thing with Farrakhan and InfoWars and all that. I think that it happened at about the same time anyway, so there's probably some overlap. And guess who I think wrote the article for the Pointer Institute on this list? The SPLC, of course.
I've had Mark Potok on the show, the publisher. I think he's gone now. I think he got nailed for being,
Was that him or his superior? Anyway, yeah.
No, I think it was his superior. Whatever, they're all deserving of. And we had Heidi Byrick was his director of special projects, and I was like, a special project. So she came on a few times, and I just, tell me the history. It's very interesting. Where'd you guys come from? When the Church Report came out, and they had like the FBI was surveilling all these civil rights groups and anti-war and all that kind of stuff. They go, yeah, you can't do that anymore, and at least not openly. So the Southern Poverty Law Center came out and said, well, there's a lot of Ku Klux Klan. Some of these guys, they got to be watched. So we're going to do it privately, and we'll just tell you, and then you can go after them, that kind of thing. So they have their, watch list. That's where all these lists came from, the Southern Poverty Law Center. Well, then they started coming out. I mean, all the guys during after the Revolution and so on, they really, the MIAC report, and they're going after, all the Ron Pauler people and Baldwin and Gary Franchi and Sheriff Richard Mack and Badnarik. I mean, it just went on and on and on and on and on. I know all these guys. They spoke at our summit. We did the Revolution and everything. I had them on, and I go, what the hell, man? What do I got to do? How come I'm not on there? Well, they had Freedom's Phoenix on there as an enabling site, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So he didn't know that was when I had him on. I go, well, at least my website made it. And you go, he didn't like that he was on, right? And I just go, I want to know the criteria. Yeah. What the hell do I got to do? Well, Heidi told me, she goes, well, we talked about it, but two things. She goes, one, we saw libertarianism as a legitimate philosophy because it was a political party. I guess that was the criteria or something. And then the other thing is that, Ernie, we just knew you wanted us to. Hell yeah. God dang it. It's just these guys is so, and, there's 14,000 Southern Poverty Law. I saw the article, months ago, 14,000 people under Southern Poverty Law Center, the ones that are going through all the YouTubes. They supplied the manpower for this YouTube hero crap. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so
all
bad.
See, this is the thing. It's all a big ball. They're all trying to roll together. And this pointer list was based on other lists, including, I think, Proper Not. So that these lists are all feeding on each other, and they're creating the kind of database of naughty sites that will, at some point, I think we haven't even really begun to see it, but at some point, this will be the list that will be, Facebook and Twitter and whatever. Okay, these are blocked, or, if you share a link,
don't care. Okay, that's one thing we got to talk about your IPFS thing. We put you all up there last week. It's been awesome. I've been using it as an example. I'm going, man, just boom, it's fast. Boom, it's fast. Boom, it's fast. Because we put you on your own server, has its own gateway of the blah, 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 blah. Derek sent me back. We're going, why is it slow now? Because I, have James on. And he goes, all the gateways are being clogged up. They're doing, if they can, they are. So we got to route around and create more gateways and doing the however the heck it works, all that geek stuff. And it's going to be a thing. They're going to have to attack it. One of the groups that was big IPFS fans, I had them on, and they said, we're worried. The only thing that we're worried about is IPFS being taken over at the core like Bitcoin was. Mm-hmm. And I go, really? It's that much of a threat. So, but what will happen is the tech is not proprietary or anything. It just goes out and anybody can do whatever. So
like Bitcoin Cash and whatever else forked off Bitcoin.
You're the test case. You've been the rock star on this, and it's been really inspirational to a lot of people. And it's got even Alex Jones. I've got Rob Telegrams doing kind of how and whatever. I'm, here it is. You guys were talking about it. So peace out. Let me know how it works out. But we're worried about James and platforming the other guys. And I see this as the future. IPFS. You go to. We'll see if I've been pimping the crap out of it at the top of every the archive for all of our radio shows. So I'll show the audience this. You can see where to find it. Any radio show every day that we do the show, at the top we got, we're on DLive and Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and all that kind of crap. IPFS, Phoenix Pirates and the Corbett Report. You just click on it, boom, everything, hundreds of gigs of data we have on servers that can't be taken down. You may not be able to access it all the time, but, and that's what we're working on there. And it's always going to be a block of their coming. I don't think they saw this coming. And it's, we'll see what happens with this, but it's not for lack of effort on our part. We're making sure this is done. And I'm really happy about it. It's a good example to everyone, and it's going to be something like this. This or something like it, to where the data is us. We are the internet. And the one thing that you thought that if we'd have just a bunch of people, it'd be fast and easy and it goes, it's the gateways. There's always some bottleneck. So what we've done is you start replicating gateways. We got, well, this one. So there's always a solution, and it's an ongoing battle, and we are not going to lose James Corbett. I guarantee it, girlfriend. So that's what we're working on because of this mind, this perspective, and he's the only guy I know that lives in Japan, goes to, Vietnam. So, you keep us informed.
Yeah, I'll keep you in the loop.
All right. Anything else you want to do? Is there, we got to wait till you get kind of all newsified up again. Next time we do you, and you'll have an opinion about everything because, man, there's a lot
exactly right. Yeah.
A lot of
next
stuff
time
happening.
we talk, I'll have a lot more detail.
I'm interested in your top 10 of anything, James does. That's going to be awesome.
It'll be good.
All right. Anything else you want to pimp?
Let's leave it there for now.
All right. It's always good to talk. I'm glad you're back. We were looking for, when's James coming back? So I knew you'd just be getting off your vacation. I'll let you go so you can just go rest. And I know how it is. This vacation, I'm doing this one. This is the first one. I don't have nothing to do other than Saturday I go to a wedding, and that's it. I am going boom, and then I am waves on toes and sand and and maybe I can score me some, something. Something. And I'm just going to be there and just watch the waves and do some snorkeling. I'm bringing my own fins to some of my gear because I'm hell yeah. And then
Nice.
I'm going to be rested when I come back because I'm not taking grandkids or kids.
Awesome. All right, we'll have fun.
James Corbett, thecorbettreport.com. Thanks a lot, James. Good to have you back, man.
All right, take care.
Peace.